Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook. We got Justin Wells. We got Coach Dub. It's time for another edition of Recruiting Intel. We got a lot to talk about. We got some 5-stars to talk about, some new offers, and some highly ranked 2027 guys. So make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, head over to InsideTexas.com. We've posted a lot of recruiting intel over the past few days, and some of the more important updates have to do with some 5-star recruits. Justin, let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe on the offensive side of the ball. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, ULab High, Lamar Brown. It is literally on LSU's campus. That's why they call it University Lab. One of the top prospects listed as an athlete, and you don't usually see the big boys listed as an athlete, but I'm going to pull his huddle up on the screen, and you're going to see why in a second. One of the best football players in the country, and he's going to head to Texas in June.
Yeah, Texas, they jumped on this one pretty late. This guy's been a known commodity for almost 2 years, but they decided to get him in. I think he's going to take an official visit on June 6th through the 8th. I think I texted you guys. I don't know what position this guy's going to play. Like, is it going to be defensive line? Is it going to be left guard, right tackle, things of that sort? And, he's a football player, like you said, throwback, just put him somewhere and let him eat. But It's interesting that Texas got into this one so late. And so, and I think part of it is the Horns are being thorough. And I think part of it is if you ask any prospect in the country if they want to take an official visit to Texas, 100% of them will tell you yes. And that's what we're at in 2026. These kids all want to see Texas. They don't care about the relationships. They just want to see Texas. It's that type of momentum. And I think that's where they're at with Lamar Brown. LSU is supposed to have a lead. Texas A&M is supposed to be having a lead with this kid for a while. Again, I don't know what position he plays. Let him play. Let him play offensive line. Let him play defensive line. Either way, get him on campus and figure it out later.
Charlie, how often do you see this? Just a guy who, he plays on both sides of the ball for his high school because, when you're 6'5", 280, you're going to be used. Your team's going to need you. But for him to be this level of a prospect on both sides of the ball, it seems extremely rare.
Yeah, you don't see it too much. I mean, he is rare. I mean, you look at his first clip here at defensive end. Like, he dominated the first few clips at left tackle or right tackle. Then he goes to defensive end and dominates. Like, it's so rare to see this kid. I mean, I told him he doesn't have a position. His position is enforcer. I'm just here to destroy things, and that's exactly what he does. Put me anywhere on the offensive line or defensive line. That's exactly what I'm going to do, whatever you need me to do type of kid. I did write to him about him. I did have him maybe switching defense side of the ball, maybe playing like a 3-tech. I can see that playing inside because he has a quick first step. But everything he applies to offensive line, I think he can apply to defense and really just dominate. I mean, he has a nasty attitude. You see, he just finished some poor kid in front of their parents. But, man, I love this kid. I love his game and what he can be. Either side of the ball, though, he fits for me. I just want him on my team.
It's not uncommon for top players in Louisiana lately to go to other schools. You know how hard that was and difficult that was in the past. If LSU lets this guy leave, Brian Kelly, buddy, you ain't it.
I'm trying to figure out. He just talked with our Chad Simmons. His Texas visit replaces a Florida State visit, I believe. It looks like LSU. They're kind of the ones talking to him most often, and I'm pouring through this real quick because living rent free in UT showed us Lowell Clark's his best coaching relationship. Justin, that makes sense considering Clark's connections to Louisiana. And you know what? Looking at this guy on the offensive line, it feels like they have a good grasp of what the O-line class may look like. I could see this guy being in the D-line class and fitting in perfectly.
Absolutely. The take number is probably going to be 3 or 4, again, like the last cycle. If you can get this guy in, this is a no-brainer numbers buster type guy. Again, Clark's only been on campus for about 4 or 5 months. And so it's just surprising to me how late they were kind of even engaging into this. But, hey, look, Clark is turning in to be one of those kind of guys on the recruiting trail. Great relationship builder. wonderful opportunities there. Let's see. Let's get him on campus. And let's see kind of where this thing is going to go, because I think it's going to be tough to pull him out of LSU. I really do. I think that's going to be tough. But I've seen the Horns do stranger things in the Pelican State. So that's what the OV is about.
We'll keep going. We're going to be talking about another 5-star in just a second. That is Xavier Griffin. And Justin, you'll like this. I had to scroll past some basketball highlights on his huddle to get to this.
He looks like a basketball player.
To get to these football highlights. And Xavier Griffin was someone, Justin, that we didn't think we'd be talking about maybe at this juncture. We knew Texas got him on campus in April, committed to USC at the time. Hey, another Georgia prospect committed to USC.
We had only seen 400 this spring.
Right. And as Living Rent Free is saying, Clark's one of the reasons why Texas is good with Xavier Griffin. Now the Longhorns seem to be a little bit more involved in this recruitment than they were just about a month ago.
Well, you know, when we talk to guys coming out of visits, you know, you have your typical guy that loves everything, you know, love the opportunity, loves the atmosphere, loves the staff. You have some kids that just exude this just excitement. Your Jamie French type, your Samari Matthews type, you know, they're just blown away by it. And then you have these other guys that act like they weren't that excited. They act very businesslike. They act like, well, I was just kind of here going through the motions. You and I spoke to Xavier Griffin. There was zero hint of enthusiasm coming out of this visit. But I think it's because he is a business guy. This guy is looking for his future school, and he's doing it in a very pragmatic way, him and his family. And you got to give those guys credit. They're being very judicious because they know how important it is. How majorly important it is to get a guy like that. Xavier Griffin's listed at linebacker. That's an edge. We knew he was an edge when we saw him on campus. You look at his size, you know, and then when we find out that Clark is his head guy and that they're recruiting him at edge, it all made sense. Look, Texas is the quiet leader in this recruitment right now. Yeah. Now, Alabama's going to be tough. I think it's going to be an Alabama-Texas fight for this kid at the end. But, you know, it's funny because he also told us, USC is my school. I'm locked in and everything's good. And, man, we blinked, and then that just disappeared. So, like I said, usually you see some of these guys, and they're really excited, really enthusiastic, and you can sometimes tell, okay, Texas, they moved the needle there, or they did something well here. With Griffin, it was so just bland. You'd almost think, man, well, maybe he was just here for the free trip, or maybe he was just here, or maybe he was in a bad mood. No, this guy's on the business trips. This guy's looking for his future place. And you know, give this kid credit. He likes Texas, and they are in the thick of it.
Yeah. Charlie, with this, it seems like for all these different USC commits who are from Georgia, Justice Terry was one. Who's the other one? Isaiah, from last cycle. Gibson, yeah. It seems like the recruitment's just reset after that moment. And, of course, teams like Texas, Georgia, Alabama, they'd been involved up to this point. But it kind of feels like this just clears the deck and gives the Longhorns and all different schools an opportunity to really start over from a good spot and give their pitch to, you know, this highly talented player.
Yeah, most definitely. And a common thing you're probably going to hear is Coach Clark is going to be involved in a lot of these kids' recruitment. Like, he's probably recruiting a lot. And everybody has the same thing to say about him. Great relationship, great developer. Even Griffin said, you know, just building a relationship with Coach Clark since he was at Ohio State. Like, now they're telling me exactly what role I'll be playing. And oddly enough, I think he wears Colin Simmons' number in high school, number 8, right? Didn't Colin Simmons wear number 8? I mean, looks just like – let me not say look just like Colin Simmons off the edge, but he wears the same number. They're selling him on the exact same role, and I think it's a great fit for the Longhorns. But that relationship between him and Coach Clark is steady building, steady growing, and I think Texas is in a very good spot with Griffin. Like you said, they're more business-like, him and his dad. But I know they like Coach Clark a lot, and they like what Texas can do on and off the field as far as developing. So can we see how this shakes out? But as always, thank you, USC. Continue to do what you do.
It's allowed, but how beneficial is it going to be? And you know, it's just one of those things where in this era, it sounds like he decommitted because of no other visits rule. And I get it from USC's perspective.
That's what it says. Look,
but exactly. No. I'm sure that there are some other complicating factors. And hey,
if you really want to go to that school, that no visit thing isn't going to matter.
Right.
USC is a placeholder. That's why they have 47 commitments on May 20th, May 18th, May 19th.
May 20th. We're almost there. But, hey, Texas throwing their hat in the ring for some 5-star targets, trying to get
These
them
kids
out.
aren't going to say no.
Exactly, especially when they've seen not just Texas defense, but they've heard from some of their friends, I'm sure, what it's like to be recruited by Texas. So before we keep going, got to show some love to our sponsor, that is Roback. There's only one way to describe Roback: best fit, best feel. For those who aren't familiar with Roback, they are completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable activewear. Roback has released so many items within their new licensed game day collection, and it's our favorite. With novel polo designs and clean hoodie and Q-zip designs from some of your favorite schools like Texas, it's definitely worth checking out. Nobody else on the market is pairing these level of custom designs with this quality of activewear. Roback's everyday shorts or their Delta Performance pants are the perfect pairing as well. Both are super comfortable, have an elastic waistband, and great fabric that's made to have the appearance of a nice short look, but the comfort for a day on the move. Roback has also been proudly leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with multiple college football stars like Quinn Ewers. They are becoming the go-to brand for college athletes across the country. Use the code TEXAS20 on Roback.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers through the end of this week. That's RHOBACK.com and 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with Texas20. Time to talk a little bit about the skill positions. Justin, some of the stuff you posted today in your recruiting intel talked about Chris Jackson and some of his targets in the 2026 class. We'll start with someone who's currently committed to Texas A&M. That is Aaron Gregory from Douglas, Georgia. The Longhorns seemingly have not let a commitment to Texas A&M prevent them from pursuing Gregory out of the state of Georgia. And what's the latest with Texas as they try to undo that pledge?
Yeah, they're working on Gregory. They have not let up with this kid. Every year, Chris Jackson, I think, identifies one guy that he just must have out of state, like his one guy. And I think I think Aaron Gregory is that this year. He just had a great performance at the Rivals camp. He looked really, really good, really solid. Saying all the right things, locked into A&M. But behind the scenes, I'm still hearing Texas is the team pushing. They're the team to watch there. And so, he jumped in the boat in A&M in that late College Station visit in October last year. And they're doing a good job with him because, there's so much opportunity to catch a football there. At the same time, it's Texas, and they see the draft, and they see all the number of guys moving on, and they see the growth and the culture. And look, get Aaron Gregory back on campus for that official visit, and I think this thing really turns up. But at the same time, like he says, he's locked in, but Texas is not letting go.
Charlie, when you look at him, does he look like a Sark receiver? Or does he look like a little bit different compared to what Texas has recruited in the past?
I would say a little bit on film, it looks like maybe Jamie French, how smooth he is coming out of his routes and things. He has a similar build. I think we got a chance to see him at OT7. I think he stepped up his game going against good competition out there. He looked a lot faster in person, and he really stepped up his game, like I said, going to high point the football. So I can see it, but I think he's more of a Chris Jackson type. Like, got the NFL kind of body and bigger frame that you could add muscle to, and he can catch the ball very well away from his body. So he's good after the catch, getting the ball. So I think he's more of a Chris Jackson type of fit as far as a bigger frame, bigger body receiver who can kind of do it all.
We'll keep going with more wide receivers. Justin, Texas, we haven't talked about a guy from the state of Texas quite yet, and we may not until the end, and when we start talking about 2027 guys. But another 2026 wide receiver that Texas is keeping tabs on, recruiting really hard, going to a place where Texas usually never ventures for football, and that's Norman, Oklahoma. Mason James just released a top list. I think it may have been 6 or 7. Longhorns are in it. Oklahoma is obviously in it. He was another prospect that made his way to Austin last month. And despite living just a few minutes away from OU's campus, the Longhorns are one of the top contenders, if not, a top contender along with the Sooners for Mason James' services.
Yeah, this kid, this is one of those that Texas kind of got in a few months ago, and they're really happy they did. I remember Charlie got to see him at OT7, and he called me and talking about, hey, dude, this guy looks like Dalen McCutcheon, just with everything from his fluidity to his hands to everything. Really smart kid too. Really enjoyed meeting him and his family. You would think growing up in Norman that, Oklahoma would be the prohibitive favorite, but I don't think they are. I know they're in the mix. I know they've done a good job recruiting here, but I think he's pretty open. Missouri, when you talk to him, they made an impression. Washington, it's kind of a unique grouping of players. And so, but yeah, he's got a date for June 25th. You know what that tells me? He's trying to get a spot. Yeah. That's exactly what that says. And so, and Texas is thick in the mix there. I'm watching Washington. I'm watching Mizzou. And you got to watch the in-state Sooners. I think they're always going to be a threat. But Texas did a really good job with him. He said an official visit before he left. His unofficial in April. And so I think the number there is going to be 3, maybe even 4 at receiver. And Mason James fits. Like what you asked Charlie earlier, is this a Sark type guy, a Jackson type guy? Yeah, it really is. He has got elite body control, strong hands. He just doesn't miss much. And so I think that June 25th commitment date tells us what we need to know. He's trying to get a spot. I like where Texas sits.
Definitely. Charlie, what's the competition level? Norman's obviously in the Oklahoma City area. I think there are a couple schools in Norman. I'm not exactly sure. But just kind of being able to look at this, we've seen some good players come out of Oklahoma City. Sure. What are you thinking here? Because there's parts of me that's wondering if I'm looking at a West Texas, 3A school, and parts of me wondering if this is like, not Alito because they're a different level, like that type of, 1,500 person school. What do you see when you watch this competition?
Yeah, definitely. So funny. Speaking about Oklahoma players, the Olins probably would give me a hard time if I said anything bad about Oklahoma because that's where they're from. They say there's a ton of balls in Oklahoma, but outside of a few schools, I don't know much about, Oklahoma competition. I do know that he's a great player. And then when you're a great dominant player, you make everybody else look slower. You make everybody else look that much worse on tape. And that's what he does. So really, it's not about the competition. It's how he makes everybody look. If you're that great of a player, you should look like this on tape if those guys aren't as good. So Mason James is a heck of a player. One thing in common about him, I would say, is he has the exact same trainer as Parker Livingstone and Dalen McCutcheon and Margin Hooks. So does he look polished? Yeah, because he trains at it. And I think that's a correlation there that he doesn't mind putting in work traveling across the Red River to come get workouts in so that he can improve on his game. So I'll probably get a chance to see him in a few days at one of the clinics here. He'll be training again in Dallas. But I love this kid. But he does dominate on tape. I'm just not sure what the competition level is like, but it doesn't matter to me. He's the guy.
Got a good question from our guy, Roaster. Justin, do you think Ohio State and LSU will end up with all the wide receiver freaks in the class as they currently have all the commits? I'm trying to figure out what that looks like.
Ohio
that
State
obviously
only has one elite player committed, Chris Henry. The other two are what? Caden Dixon-White and Boyd.
Yeah,
those aren't elite. Those are just takes. But I'm trying to think who else they're in on because I think they're go ahead.
LSU has Tristan Keys, who's number 1 overall, Jabari Mack, and then Kenny Darby, who's from Northern Louisiana, still in the top 50.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to look through the list of On3 recruiting rankings. Within the top 10, Aaron Gregory, he's ranked as number 8.
Yeah.
We've been asked a good amount about Davian Gross, and
he's an athlete out of Lone Star.
He's an athlete.
Is there any chance Texas starts to circle toward him?
I mean, they could. They haven't before. I don't see it happening now, but I mean, anything's possible.
Looking at some other ones, Caden Finley's number 18. Messiah Hampton, who we've talked about before.
He should be in for an OV. Look, I don't think there are a lot of freaks total in the class of 2026 for wide receiver. I just don't. Chris Henry was going to be that king freak, but I know he's still trying to come off his injury. And look, Henry could be one of the most dominant college players in the country in the next few years, but you got to see it. He's not Jeremiah Smith. You don't have, I don't think, that one guy that you're just that Decorian Moore or that, that just blows you away type guy. I don't know if 2026 has that guy. And so in this class, I like their evals. I like the Mason James eval, Caden Finley. I'm serious. Taking Chris Stewart early might wind up being a very smart decision because it's unique how these receivers are kind of playing out. There's a lot more to go, but the Horns also have a ton on campus now. And so that sales pitch can work against them when they just signed the 3 amigos in the last cycle, two 5-stars and an almost 5-star in Dalen McCutcheon. And so it's a good question, Roaster. I don't think there's really any wide receiver freaks. Tristan Keys isn't really a freak. He's really good. Aaron Gregory's not a freak, but he's really good. And so it'll be interesting how LSU's always going to recruit this position well, especially when most of those guys are in their backyard.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to go, I think, in the wide receiver market. I think you're going to still see a lot of movement. I also think you're going to see some late risers, some receivers that people may not have been as big on, have big camps this summer, do really well, have good senior seasons, and then Texas might, come back around there. 2 guys that come to mind, Cohen Brown, wide receiver out of Waxahachie, wasn't on the radar until 2 or 3 weeks ago. Right. Now he's got an offer. Another guy you need to pay attention to is Jaden Warren. I am falling in love with that dude. Iowa Colony kid does not miss. That's another guy it's a big take. And so in this cycle particularly, I may be missing a few guys, but the freakiest guy that catches the ball might be Mark Bowman, and that's a tight end. And so it's a good question, Roaster, but we got a lot of the recruiting season to let it play out.
If we're going to include athletes, I'll do it. I was about to say.
Jalen Lott.
I don't consider him a freak, but he is a dude.
I don't know, man.
Freak is reserved for Travis Henry, for Jeremiah Smith, for like your upper echelon, like generational type guys. Jalen Lott is the best 2-way guy, I think, in the country. There's not a better player in college, in high school that can play wide receiver and play corner. I just don't like throwing the freak term every cycle out to like a pretty good receiver or a pretty good athlete. I think those should be reserved for the ones that do freaky stuff on Saturdays and eventually on Sundays.
He's a state champion in the high, or maybe not the high. He's a state silver medalist in the high jump.
Mm-hmm.
He is the state silver medalist in the long jump, and he's broken 10.9 in the 100.
10.900 is really good, but you can't look at me and say that's freaky. Would that make a 10.9?
I'm looking at the 7 foot in the high jump, man, and the 24.
He is incredible. He is the best 2-way player in college football. I'm just not one that just throws the freaky label on every player that makes a play in high school. I think it gets watered down. Like when people say amazing, everything's amazing. Well, at some point, it's really not. It's just good. And so I'm a little particular with the whole freaky term because you see freaks, and sometimes Trevor Gooseby, that's a freak. He's 6'7", 330, and can dunk, do a 360. That's a freak. Yeah. So I'm just a little cautious with who I label freak. Again, Jalen Lott, best 2-way player in high school football. No question about it.
It's like calling it seems like
every Simmons.
Well, no, I was
freak.
I was going to say, just like every NFL draft class, there's a generational quarterback.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Start at Ian Boyd.
Yeah. One more thing to talk about, the 2026 class. Kyle Flood made his way to Pennsylvania, but it's a part of Pennsylvania that you can look over there and see New Jersey. So it's Kyle Flood's neck of the woods. That is Grayson McKeough, LaSalle College High School. Winmore, Pennsylvania is where it's located. Kyle Flood goes up there, Charlie, sends him an offer. You got to talk to Winmore. What's the latest as Texas tries to build out its 2026 class?
Yeah, he's working on setting up an official visit. Let's say June 20th to the 22nd. Said it means a lot that Texas came that far to offer him, right? And Coach Flood came to see him. And so he has the Max Wright bill, like 6'7.5", 285. Like he has a big frame. That's the guy you usually see go to Penn State, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, right? That's who's his top 3 schools that's really recruiting him. But he's watched Texas from afar. He's like, man, it's Texas football. They're on the radar. Everybody watches them, even all the way up here in Pennsylvania. So if he sets that OV, I don't know. It really could be something, but I think he's a big project, man. Being that type of size, that's just God-given that you can't coach, right? And Coach Beck can get his hands on a guy like that. You just never know, but that is another big human Coach Kyle Flood has targeted, and just kind of look out for that and see what happens.
They're in such a good place with offensive tackles. And this goes to what we were talking about with the first player of the show. if Texas shows interest, they want to visit. And they are all open to seeing what Austin is about. The secret is out. They absolutely love it. The Horns are in a great spot with at least 3, maybe 4 offensive tackles still in this cycle. This guy, to me, is a contingency, and he is a beautiful one at that. I like the Max Wright comp.
I'm just glad to see Kyle Flood going and trying to mine some of the places that were probably really good to him at Rutgers and even further. Because, like I said, this is the Philadelphia area. You kind of got Philly, and that's in Pennsylvania, but you get a pretty wide radius, and you're not too far from New Jersey, not too far from Delaware for what that's worth. These are places Kyle Flood knows, and he's not afraid to put an offer on the table to a target that he thinks can help out. So you go to On3, you see a lot of Penn State writing related to him. Makes a lot of sense. They're going to have a good offensive line this year. Should be pretty. It may be a tough pull, but you like seeing Texas try for it. And who knows? Maybe this is I don't want to say backup plan. I don't ever think that's the right word, but it's just one of those things where if something goes awry with looking for some of the other offensive tackle targets, maybe this is someone Texas gets in. Before we go to 2027.
Hold on, before we go, we got to make a mention. Hayward Howard Jr. jumped in this class early. You know why? He got a spot. That kid is smart. This class is filling up. The Horns are not playing around in 2026. If they give you a committable offer, buddy, you better jump on it because it's not going to be there long. Hayward Howard Jr. said, I got it.
Yeah.
Good to see Hayward. We have good luck with Louisiana player dads. We had Barry Sorrell in here almost daily. Mr. Howard, if you want to come join us almost daily, please.
I miss Tredarian Ball popping in. If you're listening, Tredarian, I'm thinking about you, brother.
But appreciate you tuning in from New Orleans. I got to drive through on next week to head to Destin for some SEC meetings. So maybe a stop by Edna Carr is in order.
Did you know Edna Carr is playing Diabell's team this year?
Where?
In New Orleans. I'm looking at September 12th, I think it's week 3. I'm actually going to probably look at making that because I want to see Dia play in person anyway. That would be a great matchup.
And always good to have this type of insight. Don't be surprised they're working on Lamar Brown. So Texas is putting –
That's the guy to work on. Hey, remember we talked about freaks? Lamar Brown. Boom.
Okay.
That's a freak. I just don't like throwing that turnaround so easy.
Week 3, there it is. All right, Justin, we'll have to put you in touch.
I'll do another. Hey, I learned that road from Tyler to New Orleans very well in the Arch Manning recruitment. That I can be there in 7.5, 8 hours.
Should be a lot of fun to track that one. I want to watch that game. I may figure out a way to go to that one. Maybe a little tough. Last but not least, interesting thing to talk about. On3 updated its 2027 prospect rankings today. Some big names within the state of Texas made the list. The one thing I really want to take note of from looking at this list of the top prospects in the country in this class, 3 of the top 10 players from the state of Texas. And they are 3 players, I believe, that have Texas offers. Let's start back at number 7, John Meredith, Euless Trinity cornerback. And, I try to make sure I watch a good amount of film. It's hard for 2027, but I got to watch his. And Charlie, this may be underrating him.
This is why we sent Charlie to Euless Trinity 2 weeks ago, guys.
Yeah, definitely. Look, arguably the number 1 corner in the entire class.
Country.
I mean, he has legit. You don't see too many 6'2.5", 6'3" corners who can move like him, having the hips and the footwork. He trains really, really hard. He's dedicated. He's hungry. We saw him at the Under Armour camp in Melissa. He was out there shutting guys down. At the time, he wasn't ranked that high. After that, his ranking kind of boosted up, but he has everybody in the country recruit him for a reason. Out of the entire nation, this kid is absolutely a stud on the outside. He's a definition of a true shutdown corner.
Texas has the state of Texas has 39 players in the top 300, 10 in the top 50, and as you see, 3 in the top 10, and 11.
After watching the draft in April, I'm not surprised, Joe.
11 of the top 25 in-state players are from the DFW area. So very, very talent rich.
Yeah. You ready, Charlie?
The next player is from that DFW area, Justin. That is Jalen Brewster from Cedar Hill. this is a name that we've kind of – it's funny how some of these names, even though they're a class ahead, you get familiar with after a while.
Right.
This is definitely one of them. We make the flip phone joke with Kenny Baker, but no matter what type of phone he has, he's had Jalen Brewster's contact for a while.
Yeah, they were early on Jalen Brewster, actually, and it was obvious. I remember the first time we saw him, we thought, okay, I don't care what class he's in. He's an offer. And it comes to find out he was a 2027. Look, I believe he already has something like 30-something offers already. Yeah. And from the biggest schools in the country. I think Oregon just did a couple weeks ago. Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia are all in the mix. They're going to come to DFW to find these kids, and Jalen Brewster's one of them. Look, for the most part, Texas has had to go out of state the last few cycles to put together a complete D-line class. And outside of Jamian Winfield this year, who's a Mississippi transfer, they may have to do the same. 2027 is when it's going to change a little bit. There are some legitimate defensive linemen coming up in the class in 27 and in 2028. And I think that's going to help Kenny, and I think it's going to help Texas because they can stay a little bit closer to home, sell that proximity, sell the vision of the program where your parents can come watch you and that sort. And Jalen Brewster will be a priority defensive lineman from now until he signs in a year and 8 months or whatever. He is an absolute stud. Don't be surprised if you see him on campus in June at elite camp.
I don't even know if Kenny Baker needs to get off of I-35 to get his 2027 defensive tackle class. Like I think they may be all up there in the Metroplex. Last but not least, fourth, obviously.
Love this kid.
Kennedy Brown from
Charlie and I love this kid.
I think my hand still hurts from shaking his.
Yes. His hands were like catcher's mitts. I'm like, wait a minute, you're 15, you're 16? Jesus, he's huge.
One of obviously the number 2 prospect as far as offensive tackles go. His profile picture on On3, I think, is of him at a Texas visit. So he's seen the 40 acres. And we got a long way to get to really looking at that 2027 O-line class. But Charlie, this is going to be someone that they want in it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Look, deservedly so of the ranking, man. I think this kid is going to be a phenomenal. You look at the pipeline of kind of guys they're recruiting at that offensive tackle. Those guys can come in and fall right into the NFL pipeline production that Coach Cal Flood is building over there. And Kennedy Brown is no different than that. Like I said, man, just meeting the guy. I want to say it was junior day we met him when he came down, him and his family. But, man, I'm talking about a huge kid that's going to continue to grow. And that's just another solid offensive tackle to protect the quarterback's blind side in the future.
And, we talked about how defensive linemen are kind of starting to cycle back up in the state of Texas. Buddy, offensive tackle, there's not a stronger position in the state coming up. We talked about it in 2027, Charlie. Obviously, it starts with Kennedy Brown.
Yes.
Then, Caden Scott, San Antonio Roosevelt, auto take. Demarion Johnson, big juicy at Tyler Legacy, auto take. Quay Ford, he doesn't even have a Texas offer, and he's got 30-something offers from other guys. Texas High, auto take. Hey, and it's coming back in 28 as well. You're about to see some big boys coming in, cycling in and out of the state of Texas. The offensive tackle class, offensive line as a whole, but really offensive tackle class, you're going to have every college in the country coming to this region just for these guys. Yeah. Kennedy Brown's at the top. Love Caden Scott. Love Demarion Johnson. Love Quay Ford. And I guarantee you we're missing somebody. But it's just fun to see that, again, in state, Kyle Flood's not going to have to go too far. Now, granted, he's still going to go offer a random kid from New Jersey, a random kid from Hawaii, a random kid from California, a random kid from North Carolina, and a random kid from Pennsylvania, because that's how Kyle Flood rolls. But if you want to get elite, walk across the stage offensive tackles in 2027, don't drive more than 2 or 3 hours from Austin, because they're all right there. Charlie, he doesn't know yet.
Man. We made it so far without it happening. This is the top 10 list out of the top 25 players in state. We'll scroll down a little bit. Any from this group stand out to y'all? Some surprises, some guys should be higher. I'll make my case for Kavian Bryant later. He is On3's number 1 quarterback.
What is he overall, Joe? Because if he's number 7 in Texas, what is he?
40s, I think.
So the top quarterback in the cycle is in the 40s?
Yeah.
That'll change.
Yeah.
And Kavian Bryant, my guy, excellent quarterback. as good a shooting guard. Okay, that's Charlie Ward with 3 inches. If you're going to recruit Bryant, you got to recruit both sports and give Sean Miller a tip of the cap. He has already made sure to connect with Kavian Bryant as soon as he took over. They want to make sure that relationship keeps going. AJ Milwee is still talking to Kavian Bryant. He will be in Austin early June for that elite camp, and he told me he wants to earn his Texas offer.
A lot of familiar names on here. Landon William Callis is someone we've known about for a while. Quarterbacks, we've kind of discussed. They are very judicious with those offers, so not surprised not to see. Excuse me, man. Not surprised not to see Bryant or Nussmeier with an offer yet. Justin, there's some Tyler representation up here. You got Trey Harrelson, and then you also have Kadarius Miller. You got some East Texas up here.
Kadarius McMiller was on campus last month. He's already gotten close, and Coach Scott actually went by to see him 3 weeks ago, maybe, over at Tyler High. That's one of those old school, just big style running back kids with speed. He looks good. He came off a bad injury his freshman year, looked tremendous. And you got Trey Harrelson there. I don't know what position Myson Johnson Cook plays. Charlie, you went to see him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where this guy's going to wind up. What do you think?
He said he wants to play running back. Hey, looking at him, he got the build up. And I know this Texas side, but he looks like an old school. What's the running back that came out of Mississippi?
Sergio Kendall is what
he looks like. Sergio Kendall. The guy with Jerry Curry, he played for OU. 22. Marcus Dupree. He looks like Marcus Dupree. He looks big and built. Like he run through everything. That's how Myson Johnson Cook looks. And he runs that fast too, right? And so, man, I love it. He wants to play running back. I say you let him. That's another kid you just want to get on campus. You figure out later if he's a linebacker, if he's a running back, just get him on campus because he's a stud.
You know what? High school's not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. Looking at this list,
man,
they got a 2028 that's over the top, man.
Oh my gosh, the Marion.
Yes,
they've got everything. Jerry
Blake Gates has that thing rolling.
Great name. So, but that is going to be a place where every college coach needs to stop as soon as they get off of the plane at DFW airport.
Yeah.
2 questions real quick. Justin, any new potential running back offers? I think if it's kind of one of those cases where I think if you see one, you can ask some questions about what's going on behind the scenes. They made one to Carson Baker, but that's kind of about it.
I don't see any new ones for 2026. That's what he's asking. I don't see any new ones, but Carson Baker kind of came out of nowhere. There could be a couple others that pop up. They've got their vision for what they want. They've got their big board at running back for 26. For 27, Chad Scott has made up for it. He has come through and jumped on the Jacoby Dixon train. He's jumped on Landon Williams Callis. Like, he knows exactly who to reach out to, who to connect with. And so there's always going to be more offers when they go out on the road because they'll see new guys. But right now it's easier if you kind of, like Joe says, ask us about particular guys and we can give you a little bit of insight there. But for 2026, I think they've got their big board pretty much settled. They just, like today, Chad Scott's in Carthage going to see KJ Edwards again. And so they know what they want in this class. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few more go out for 2027.
Should be fun to track. We're going to track it here. So make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Of course, head to InsideTexas.com. We got all this. We'll have more updates throughout the rest of the week. So Justin, thank you. Charlie, thank you. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.